Hello there
Welcome back.
to your CPC YA podcast.
Yeah.
Well, we are 1 week into our new sermon series, Runaways.
With an S. Yes.
We sure are.
We are. Kicked it off this past Sunday night. It was a good time.
It was a good time.
It was.
Well, Grayson, you weren't there. We missed you.
Yep.
I actually cried for a long time. You should have seen it.
I did not. I had rock and roll sushi.
That sounds
It
delicious.
was fabuloso.
Good.
Well, we started with a very interesting story from the Bible. We started with the story of Jonah and how Jonah ran away from his calling. And do you just want to get into, just summarize a little bit of your message from Sunday evening?
Yeah. So I feel like Jonah is such an interesting individual that we meet in the Bible because when you look at his situation, he actually kind of finds himself in a place that we all kind of wish we were in this regard. How many times have you said to yourself, man, I wish God would just tell me what he wants me to do?
Yep.
I wish God would just tell me, like, I'm so sick of trying to figure it out. I wish God would just tell me what he wants me to do. And Jonah actually had that happen to him.
Yeah.
But because of his own feelings towards the situation, if you're not familiar with what's going on with Jonah, he's a prophet in the Old Testament who is told by God to go to a place called Nineveh. This is a very powerful, prominent city at the time, and they are living in a way that's contrary to how God wants them to live. And so Jonah is told to go to this place and tell them, hey, God's not pleased with what you're doing. You need to turn it around. But because of how Jonah feels towards this situation, how he feels towards these people of Nineveh, he decides, I don't want to do that. And he hightails it. He gets on a boat and he's going the opposite direction.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, God sends a storm. The whole crew that's on the boat starts flipping out, and they're like, yo, what is going on? Through praying and asking around and figuring out what's going on, they figure out that, oh, it's Jonah. And Jonah's like, yep, it's me. And the only way to do this, the only way to deal with it now is throw me overboard so that the storm stops for you guys. And they didn't want to do it at first. They tried to just row faster, but they found that, okay, the only way we're going to get through this is Jonah's got to get off the boat. So they throw him overboard. And then that's where we see the familiar part of this story as Jonah being swallowed by the fish. And I just felt like it was such a picture of where I see so many young adults right now. And a big part of it is, I think, in the church as a whole, how we've kind of glorified the idea of a calling. And don't get me wrong, being called by God is an incredible thing. It is special. It is something that each of us have in him and through him. We all have a call of God on our lives, and you should never take that for granted. What I mean by what I said is that we sometimes glamorize it to the extent of your calling just being your dream job or, whatever glamorous, cool thing God has for you to do. Yeah. And a lot of times when you're called by God to do something, a lot of times it's difficult and it's scary. And a lot of times it's not comfortable. And that was the first point of my message, even, was that calling is not comfortable.
Right.
Like it's sometimes this journey that we're on with God is going to take us to places that we're not familiar with or we're not comfortable with, or we got to have some really tough conversations, or we got to step outside of our comfort zones and do something that scares us. Like, I don't know that I have the ability to do this. I mean, even in other places in the Bible, you look at Moses, when he was called to go and deliver the Israelites.
Yep.
The conversation he has with God back and forth is like, what do you mean me? Like, I'm not good at talking like this. Like, I'm not the leader you think I am. Why don't you use my brother? My brother is a lot better than me. If you use him, he had all these issues, but God's like, no, it's you. I'm picking you.
Yeah.
You're going to go, and this is what's going to happen. And I think that sometimes now, in modern culture, we've kind of just gotten to this place where we forget that sometimes it's going to be tough. Sometimes it's going to be uncomfortable. Sometimes it's going to be a place you didn't necessarily want to go or see yourself going. But when you are able to be obedient and follow God in that, man, the incredible things he's going to be able to do through that.
Yeah, because the world tells us to go on the path that is easy.
Yeah.
The world tells us to pick a job that's going to fit your qualities best, right?
Yeah.
And then you just mentioned Moses, right? And he was supposed to lead the Israelites, but Moses couldn't talk well.
Yeah.
How if I were in his shoes, I'd be saying the same thing. Why, God? Why me? Like, I clearly can't communicate to the ability that, say, my brother can. Why don't you go use him? Or really anyone else?
Anyone but me, yeah.
Yeah. But like I said, the world tells us to go down an easy path. And if you read the Bible clearly says that that's not what a life of a Christian ought to be.
Yeah.
Right? We're called to suffer as Christ suffered. It's called a narrow path to heaven for a reason, because it's not easy.
Yeah.
It's difficult.
And so often I think we find ourselves chasing that comfort, and chasing that easiest, that path of least resistance, to the point where it leads us to something that's way worse than what we would have experienced if we'd have just done what we were supposed to do.
Yeah.
And that's another reason why I felt like Jonah was such a appropriate person for us to study, looking at this topic, is because that's exactly what happened to him. Instead of just putting his big boy pants on, so to speak, and going to do what God told him to do, now he's running the opposite direction, and now he's in this huge storm. I think I said, the way I said it Sunday night was, that disobedience brings chaos. And it's chaos not only for you. Right. Jonah's in this situation, but now these sailors who had nothing to do with what was going on in Jonah's life.
Yeah. And
now they're on this boat in the middle of this storm. Like, we didn't ask for this. We got to figure out what to do here. And it's because of, it's a direct result of Jonah's decision. And I think we need to look at that and see that when we make choices, it affects other people. When we decide not to do something, it affects other people around us, because the calling God has on your life, and this is another thing we have to kind of, get through our heads, is that it's not about you. My calling is not about me. Your calling is not about Tyke. Your calling is not about Grayson. It's about the people that God's calling us to reach.
Right.
It's about the area of the kingdom that God is calling us to build. And so if I run away from that, or you guys run away from yours, how many people are you leaving hanging? That God was trying to direct you. Okay, this is the path I want you to go. And while, yes, God is still God and he can still reach those people, we also have to take into account that nobody on this earth is promised to be here tomorrow.
Yeah.
Literally anything can happen. So I never want to be in a situation where I could have been that person's last, interaction, but before whatever happens to them may happen to them. And so I think looking at where Jonah is in this situation is so eye-opening to that, because again, these sailors weren't doing anything wrong. They were just doing their jobs. They're just on their boat going to where they were supposed to go. And now this Jonah dude just jumped on their boat.
Right.
And now they're dealing with this. And it's like, how much more, we need to be careful. This is just a storm we're talking about, but we need to be careful, dealing with people's eternities out here. Like
much more important.
And again, like I think I even cautioned this Sunday night. I'm not saying that like I am not the end all be all of somebody being saved.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can't get anybody saved. That's Jesus's, but we're still called to give people the opportunity wherever we can and whenever we can.
Yes, to continue planting seeds.
Absolutely. And so, yeah, I think it was just, it's man, looking at that story and looking at, like I said, especially in this age group, but I see it all over. Mm-hmm. And I've been in that place too, where it's like, man, I know God's trying to push me here, but I just don't feel ready, or I don't feel like I'm good enough, or I don't feel like I'm going to measure up, or I don't feel like,
or the opposite, where you think like I'm ready, like come on.
Yeah. I think that's a big part of it too.
Doesn't happen, and finally does. But realizing maybe I wasn't ready.
Yeah. I think there's a huge, and I'm glad you said there's a huge element to this that is just the reminder to trust God's timing. Mm-hmm. Trust that God is who he says he is. If he says it's time for you to go and do this, it's time for you to go and do this. Mm-hmm. But on the flip side, if he has not said that,
don't go do it.
Stay where you're at. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Because you could also look at Jonah's situation that way. He didn't tell you to go get on a boat and go to Tarshish or whatever. He didn't tell you to go there.
Yeah.
And now look what's happened because you tried to go there and you weren't supposed to go there. Mm-hmm. Look at how that's affected other people around you, and look at what that's doing in your own life. I mean, that's a very unsettling, scary, uncomfortable place to be in there. But it's way better to be in an uncomfortable place with God than it is to be in an uncomfortable place without God. Yes. You know what I mean? And so it's like, I just know that there's been times in my life where I've definitely been there, and I knew, like, man, all this chaos that's happening around me right now, there's got to be a way out. And I think I know what it is. You know what I mean? And so that's what I always tell people. I'm like, if you feel like you're in this spot where it's like life just won't quit, like the storm is just going and going, and something. Let me back up, because sometimes life just happens, right? We all live on earth. We are all dealing with it. But you know what I mean. When it's those times where it's like you just don't even feel settled, like in your spirit.
Right.
Like something on the inside of you is like, this isn't okay.
Yeah.
A lot of times I'll say, go back. What's the last thing God told you to do? Mm-hmm. And did you do it?
Right.
Because for me, I know a lot of times when I've felt like that, it's because I'm not paying attention to something. I'm not doing something that I know I'm supposed to be doing. I'm not giving up something I know I'm supposed to be giving up, or I'm not taking an opportunity that I know I'm supposed to be taking, and I try to go do it my own way, and God's like, hey, nothing else is going to calm this storm. Even if you look at the other sailors, before they throw Jonah over, what do?
Pray to their gods.
They pray to their gods, and then they try to throw over other cargo. They're doing that. They're thinking, okay, if we lighten the ship, it should be okay. You're not getting rid of the right thing.
Yeah.
You can try to get rid of all that other stuff. You could try to go all these other routes. Nothing's going to stop that storm until you get rid of the thing you're supposed to get rid of. Right. And in this case, for them, it was Jonah. Yeah. But for us, it could be anything. And we'll try our best to hold on to, whether it's a relationship or a addiction or a job or this or that. We'll try to hold on to this, or a dream, whatever it is. We'll try to hold on to it sometimes when God is the one telling us, hey, let that go. I got something way better for you over here.
That's good.
I got something way more important for you over here. But we'll try to hold on to that. And until you let that thing go, the storm isn't going to stop.
Yeah. Yeah. And your third point then was obedience brings peace.
Right? Yeah.
Now, Grayson, I want you to speak on this. And I think you've touched on it before, but you weren't necessarily in a spot where you were holding on to what God was telling you to give up, but you did have a moment where you were pursuing something in life, and the moment you realized you had to give it up, there was a supernatural peace on you, that being basketball. You want to talk about that real quick?
Yeah, because my brain was somewhere else until you said basketball.
Oh man, okay, well go to the other place too.
Yeah, the overwhelming peace. Once I graduated high school, I got sick, had to go to the hospital, And what they found had nothing to do with me being like sick, like why I showed up. So that was probably a God thing there, but it was also like why am I sick still? Like, no one told me that.
Got distracted.
Yeah. And they told me I had bicuspid something valve disease. It's something to do with your heart and your valves in your heart. And basically the doctor just said, they knew I went to IMG, knew I did extensive weight training and basketball training and stuff. It wasn't like your typical school. And so the doctor looked me in the eyes and just said, I can't believe you haven't died yet. And I was just like, well, okay. I was like, so now what?
Yeah.
And they pretty much just said, you shouldn't ever play basketball again. They really said I shouldn't lift over a gallon of milk. I shouldn't do like all these things. And I was like, well, I can't get rid of everything, like then I'll just gain weight and die that way, like I was like, I don't want to I'm still an athlete in my mind. Like I can't just not do something. But no, like whenever they told me that, it was super weird. I just had a moment of peace where I basically said, okay, and pretty much once I got home from the hospital, I texted all the coaches that I was talking with on where I was going to go to school, everybody that sent me offers or walk-on opportunities, whatever that looked like. I messaged all of them and just said, hey, not coming, here's what's up, and this is what happened, and I'm not going to go to school if I'm not playing basketball, and if I did, it wouldn't be there, it'd be at home, so yeah, it was really weird. I had a peace ever since then, and it was like I don't know if it was partially like, gosh, I've been doing so much, and I was over it, which in my head is like, yeah, I was probably like ready for my summer break for a little while, but like I loved the sport, probably, I mean, more than anything, even the Lord at that time. So yeah, it was really weird. The next piece that I was thinking in my head was just the internship, because that was a much harder piece, right? Like the other piece was like the Lord just basically put in my heart that like I'm done and I'm okay with it for some reason. This one was more of a financial struggle, right? Which at the end of the day was kind of on me, right? Like I could have went and got a job during the internship, but then that would have taken time away from my wife, my kid, which a job would no matter what, right? But we were in the internship Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and I was like, well, if we're going to do it, we're going to do it, right? Like I'm going to be all in, because most things I do, I'm 100% in, whatever that looks like. So I was like, okay, this is what we're doing. That's what we're going to do. And that was a much longer process of peace, right? Like in the beginning, it was really easy because I had the financial balance to be at peace and be like, oh, we got this, whatever. But months after month after month, it got lower and lower and lower. And I didn't account for a summer break in the internship. I thought we'd just go all the way through. So I had I don't know if it was between year 1 and year 2.
Yeah.
I think it was. So after I graduated my first year of internship, I thought, cool, I got asked to be in second year, and it's a paid part-time position. And I was like, okay, cool. So like what, tomorrow, like next Monday, is that when I start? They're like, so we'll pick back up, once summer is over. And I was just like, I have 3 more months. I was like, I gotta wait, and I'm not even gonna be in an internship here. Like, right. I'm just gonna like do nothing. So that was probably the scariest time, when I thought like, okay, I'm good, we made it. I'll have to wait maybe a month or whatever for all the payrolls, sign stuff, whatever. And then I heard, summer, so 3 months. So that's when it hit the hardest, but over and over the whole time, I'd say every single month, before that, and the summer for sure, it was just like just breathe, relax, kept telling myself that, kept praying, and seeing the Lord and what he did to bless me throughout all of those times. It's truly unbelievable, because I just always kept asking myself like, oh, what's he going to do next month? Like he's not going to do something again, like that's in my head. It was like, oh, that was great, but you're going to do that next month too? Like I just don't see it. There's just no way, and then the next month it'd be a different way of a blessing, right? But it was always something, and it was absolutely just remarkable.
Yeah,
man, I love listening to that story. First of all, just because I got to witness a big chunk of it, and I've seen how you've grown through it and what God's done in your life, and it's been incredible. But also, I love how it illustrates this point that I think we also kind of neglect to remember when we're talking about stuff like this. Like, yes, obedience brings peace, like we talked about on Sunday night. Peace doesn't make things easy. Peace
good.
Just makes it okay.
Yeah.
Grayson had peace when he made those decisions. Doesn't mean that it was easy for him to give up basketball, right. Easy for him to message those coaches and tell them thank you for your time, but I can't do this. Doesn't mean it was easy for him to make this decision with this internship with a wife and a baby girl and no income, and to have to make it through the summer with nothing.
Yeah.
That's not easy.
Yeah. That's really
it just
good.
makes it okay. You understand.
Something I realized a couple weeks ago was, so Hannah wanted to do the internship in the very beginning. And she was really thinking about it. I was doing solar at the time, and then the opportunity came up to move to St. Louis. So we moved to St. Louis. Hannah wasn't able to do the internship. At that time in my life, that was never on my brain. It was like, yeah, if you want to do it, that'd be cool. Whatever. I'm doing this, But it took going through all that and moving for us to be able to realize that wasn't what we were supposed to do, not where we're supposed to be in St. Louis. Well, it was, because I wasn't ready yet. But then once everything went down, and then we realized, okay, that we're not supposed to be here anymore, I should say. And we moved back home with the baby and everything. Then we both felt led to do the internship. And I think that is huge, right? Because if Hannah would have went too early, right? If she would have went on her own without God really telling her, go now, she knew that's something she wanted to do. She didn't know when, but if she would have went out on her own, everything would have been jacked up.
Yeah.
Like the whole plan would have been different. We wouldn't have been together in the internship, or she'd be year 2, I'd be year 1, or
your life could look totally different right now.
It'd be all upside down, all jacked up, because we ignored what God truly wanted, right? Like God did want us to go to St. Louis, right? I mean, we don't think that now because of everything that has happened in that time, but we truly were called there so that she wouldn't be able to do the internship because I wasn't ready for it yet. And I think that's
it's awesome to see how God puts that stuff together.
Yeah.
And when we are able to be obedient and get rid of the things that we need to get rid of and embrace what we need to embrace, man, he will really he'll really come through for us in those moments. And next week, when we get into the next chapter of Jonah, we'll see the time that he spent in the belly of the fish, and how that time shaped him and grew him, and led him to even more obedience. But man, we really have to learn how to value these moments in our lives, like what Grayson is talking about, because it wasn't easy. Like we said, it took some unexpected turns, some moving around, but now he's able to reflect on that moment, reflect on that season, that time, and see where God's hand was in all of it. When you're on the boat and you're in the storm and you're getting tossed around, and now you're in the water and now a big fish is coming, there's a lot of things going through your mind, and they're probably not thankfulness. But you're able now, once that situation's passed and you're on the other side, then you can look back and I see where God was. I see where I went wrong. I see what decision I should have made or where I should have gone, but I can also see where God came alongside me and said, all right, let's redirect. Let's find another path. And that's really my hope for this message series as a whole. That any of our YAs or anyone else who's listening, who feels like they've made too many wrong turns, or they've disobeyed God one too many times, and they feel like they're just lost at sea now. And there's nothing they can do. I hope that they recognize and realize the moments in their lives where God is still there and still trying to redirect and still trying to call you. And you just got to listen. You just got to listen in. You just got to slow down for a little bit, focus, pause, and hear that voice, because it's still there.
Yeah.
It's still there. Right now you feel like you can't hear it above the storms and the winds and all the things that are happening. But if you calm down for just a little bit, I promise that voice is still there.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what I hope people pull from this. If anything else, I hope they realize that maybe God hasn't left you in that storm.
That's good. That's good. Well, we will see you guys this Sunday at 7:00 here at CPC for our young adults worship experience. Please bring a friend, share this video, put a like on it. Helps the algorithm, I think.
Yeah. Helps us be more visible.
Yes.
Yes.
But we love you guys, and we will see you this Sunday.
See ya.
See you guys.